All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. The deadline has come and gone in the National Football League for players that have been slapped with the franchise tag back in March to come to an agreement on a long term contract with their respective teams. And look no further than the running back position, which really took it on the chin. We saw guys around the league who got hit with the franchise tag uh, get long-term deals, most notably and recently, Evan Ingram, the tight end from the Jacksonville Jaguars, got a multiple-year deal. But you look at the running backs that did not get long-term deals after being hit with the franchise tag. Josh Jacobs, Saquon Barkley, and Tony Pollard. All three of them were seeking long-term deals after they got hit with the franchise tag by their respective teams. And all three running backs will be playing under the franchise tag this year if they decide to play at all. Now, Tony Pollard's case was a little bit different. As you know, he was set, to get some money this offseason from somebody. And then that fractured ankle that he suffered during the Dallas Cowboys divisional round loss this past January to the San Francisco 49ers all but changed that. Josh Jacobs, to me, was in limbo from the word go this offseason, not of any fault of his. It's just due to the fact that, in my opinion, the Las Vegas Raiders are a clueless organization right now for a variety of reasons. The New York Giants reportedly did have an offer on the table for Saquon Barkley, but the two sides were never able to come to an agreement, obviously. And for me, in my opinion, for Barkley and Jacobs, it's going to be difficult for either of them to get another big deal offer next offseason, even if they play out their respective franchise tags this season, play lights out, and even if they stay healthy, because at the end of the day, that's another year of wear and tear on their bodies. You talk about Barkley right now, he's coming off of a season where he had 295 carries. We're not even talking about how many times he came out of the backfield as a receiver. You look at Josh Jacobs this past season for the Raiders. He led the NFL in rushing at more than 1,650 yards, and he also did it on 340 carries. That is a lot of wear and tear. And, for Josh Jacobs, 4 years in the NFL, 2019, 242 carries. 2020, 273 carries, 2021, 217 carries, and of course, this past season, 340 attempts. Saquon Barkley, his rookie year back in 2018, 261 carries, followed by 217 carries back in 2019. Of course, he only played in 2 games for the Giants in 2020 after he suffered that ACL injury, came back in 2021 with 162 carries, and then, of course, the big year this past season for the Giants. But at the end of the day, and it's unfortunate, the NFL simply no longer respects the running back position like they once did. There was a time, of course, when the running back position was the glamour position on the field this side of the quarterback. You think about, some of the great names throughout the 50s, 60s, and 70s, the likes of Jim Brown, the likes of Earl Campbell, Franco Harris, just to name a couple, of course. And, for me, in the era that I grew up in, I grew up seeing guys like Tony Dorsett, like Emmett Smith, like Barry Sanders, Eric Dickerson, and Walter Payton. And these guys were workhorse backs. These guys, you could count on them for 25, 30 yards, 30 carries rather, per game. And obviously, the game has changed. Guys getting worn down at the position, the analytics of it, you name it. But the bottom line is teams are no longer putting that much stock in just one guy as a ball carrier. And it's unfortunate. And honestly, the way that you're seeing things, why would a young man who's playing Pop Warner football or who's playing high school football want to even try to think about getting to the pro level and being a running back? Because the money's not going to be there. The long term security darn sure ain't going to be there. And, maybe these young men want to think about switching a position. And it's unfortunate because at the end of the day, as much as front office personnel around the NFL want to put down the running back position or don't want to commit, financially to the running back position like they have in years past and generations past, you still need to run the football in this pass happy NFL. If you can't run the football, you still got a tough chance to win. That's the bottom line. But, the Raiders are a mess. And because of that, I'm not surprised that Josh Jacobs didn't get his long-term deal. And we're talking about the Cowboys, the Raiders, and the Giants right here. But of these three teams, I will say that the Giants, in my opinion, needed to get this deal done the most, and they simply did not get it done. I've said this multiple times on here, and I'm going to say it again right now, and I'm going to keep saying it, even though I might sound like a broken record. Saquon Barkley is the heartbeat of this Giants team, not just their offense. He is their leader. And as the Giants organization wants to go out there and build off of last year's trip to the playoffs, which, saw them win a playoff game and get to the second round, to me, it's not good for team chemistry to have your most important player on offense not happy. At the end of the day, I know that the Giants committed to Daniel Jones this offseason. They gave him a long term deal. They got some new skill players around him at the wide receiver and tight end position. All of that is all well and good. Daniel Jones needs Saquon Barkley. And if you don't have Saquon Barkley at 100%, not just physically, but mentally, because he's not happy with the deal that he currently has, if he decides to play this year, well, guess what? Daniel Jones is not going to be what a lot of people want Daniel Jones to be. I'll tell you like this, and this is no disrespect to Daniel Jones. You go back and look at the Giants run in the playoffs this past year. Daniel Jones played his best game of his career in that win against the Vikings. Make no mistake about it. Okay, I am not taking it away from him. That young man laid it all out there. But then you go back to the second round when the Giants lost to the Philadelphia Eagles. You can see the gap as far as Daniel Jones and where the Giants need to be with him if they're going to be a championship caliber team. The Giants can't take that next step with Daniel Jones if Saquon Barkley is not there. And if Saquon Barkley is not there, another quality back. So, I mean, you look at it this offseason, aside from Tony Pollard getting tagged, Josh Jacobs getting tagged, Saquon Barkley also getting tagged. We saw Dalvin Cook get released by the Minnesota Vikings. He's still unsigned. Ezekiel Elliott's out there. Leonard Fournette is still out there. And for me and Dalvin Cook and all these other guys, I hate to say it, but they might have to sit back and wait until training camp starts and see somebody get injured and maybe they come in and get a deal. But I'll tell you like this, at this point, Dalvin Cook's not going to get the money that he wants. And that's also hurting, guys like Saquon Barkley and Josh Jacobs, sitting back and looking for the bread, that they want. And of course, it's unfortunate. I'm not trying to sound like I'm rambling, but I mean, we see how much money is put into the quarterback position. And honestly, some of these quarterbacks are overpaid because some of these quarterbacks are being paid elite money and they're not elite quarterbacks. We see it at the wide receiver position. We see it at the pass rusher and the left tackle. And of course, all of these positions that I'm mentioning are vital to a team's success in the NFL. But the bottom line is you still got to run the football. For me right here, I don't know where the Giants go from here because I mean, Saquon Barkley is not showing up day one for training camp. If he shows up, he's probably going to show up late. And if he were, I wouldn't blame him. You know what I'm saying? Because he's not going to go out there and put himself, in harm's way to go out there and possibly get injured when he's on another 1 year deal. I'll tell you like this, this time next year, Saquon's definitely going to have a contract. It might not be from the Giants. It might be a multi-year deal, but like I said, he's not going to get the deal that he wanted. And honestly, he's probably going to get a lesser deal this time next year, regardless of the team, due to the fact that you figure he would have been a year older. You also would have had another crop of running backs coming out in next year's draft as well. And then look no further than what happened with Le'Veon Bell a couple of years ago. And unfortunately, he was never the same. And Le'Veon Bell at that point was one of the better running backs in the National Football League. And unfortunately, he was just never the same after that whole contract fiasco with the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is an unfortunate day, not just for the three running backs mentioned, but also an unfortunate day for the running back position. You look at these guys, talented guys, very important to the success of their respective teams, but they're not being compensated like that. And it's just truly unfortunate. Again, for me, I think the Giants situation is most telling that the Barkley deal didn't get done. But I will say this: John Mara, upon hiring Joe Shane to be the Giants general manager, said he was going to stay out of the way. And this right here, the fact that Saquon Barkley is still not signed to a long-term deal for the Giants, that screams of the fact that, hey, John Mara did stay out of the way. Joe Shane is a big analytics guy. Joe Shane was not the general manager that drafted Saquon Barkley. That was Dave Gettleman. And if John Mara had been a little bit more hands-on, guess what? The Saquon deal would have gotten done. It's one of those where I talked about it a few days ago. The Giants, in my opinion, needed to get this done. I'm going to touch on the other two teams, but the Giants, more than others, really needed to get this done. I liken the Giants not getting the Saquon Barkley deal done, and I talked about it before, and I'll say it again, to in 1993 when the Dallas Cowboys didn't get the Emmitt Smith deal done. Emmitt Smith held out. He missed the first two games. Dallas was looking to repeat as Super Bowl champions. They lost those first two games, and before you know it, Jerry Jones got the deal done. Dallas won 12 out of their last 14, won the NFC East, got home field advantage, and were able to repeat as Super Bowl champions. And for the Giants, again, you can have all of the talent at the other positions that you want, but you don't have your heart and soul. Tony Pollard, again, the Dallas Cowboys were also a playoff team last year. Dallas Cowboys feel like they have a Super Bowl team, and they need a healthy Tony Pollard. I just feel that his situation, the dynamic of it, has changed due to the injury. We saw the Raiders this offseason spend a ton of money on quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo. But again, they're not taking care of their heartbeat. But again, the Raiders, the Raiders are just an organization in influx because you have some of the holdovers, obviously, from John Gruden's tenure on this roster, which includes Josh Jacobs, but then you bring in Josh McDaniels as your new head coach. And again, anytime you have a GM or a head coach that didn't draft or sign guys, it definitely causes a problem. The NFL just doesn't value running backs like they once did. And I think today is a shining example of that. Will that ever change? You never know. But at the end of the day, these guys, unfortunately, for the short term, are definitely going to have to figure it out. So, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. Now, you can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So, once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I'm signing off. And I'm saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.